Hello, Charles Mercier here. This is a quick introduction to some of the architecture of New Haven, Connecticut that we will see on our walking tour. New Haven is a city remarkable in illustrating the trajectory of architecture in America, even of American history itself, over 300 years, from the late 1600s Morris House, damaged by the British in the Revolution in 1779 and rebuilt, not on our tour, to the 1974 Yale Center for British Art by Louis Kahn. Of course, when you walk, you see things in convenient order. In this video, I'll put some of the important buildings we'll see in chronological order. New Haven was founded in 1637 by English Puritans trying to establish an independent colony and what was hoped would become a commercially successful city and port. It was designed in a grid with 9 squares, with the village green as the center, which it still is. What became Yale College and University was founded in 1701 in New Haven. New Haven was co-capital of Connecticut from 1701 until 1873. Very broadly to periodize, just for the buildings we will see in this video, we will see buildings from the late colonial and federal periods, 1750 to 1815, then from a period of prosperity associated with the Canal era, 1825 until the Civil War in 1861, when Atlantic trade was expanding north and west to the interior of the United States. The Farmington Canal, beginning in New Haven, opened in 1828, to gain access north into northern Connecticut and Massachusetts. We will see where it cut through Hill House Avenue near St. Mary's Church. You remember it cuts through Cheshire near the college. You're familiar with the Farmington Canal Trail. New Haven was a manufacturing powerhouse after the Civil War, 1870 to 1937. In the period after the Second World War, Yale University commissioned a number of important modernist architects, 1957 to 1974. Here are some of the buildings that we will see. Connecticut Hall at Yale, 1752, is one of the 7 surviving colonial-era college buildings in America. In the federal era, by 1815, New Haven executed one of the most important urban planning projects in America at the time, clearing the green and making it into a civic center, positioning 3 separate churches and congregations along the center of the green, Episcopalians right next to Congregationalists. From 1812 to 1815, we have United Congregational Church, First Congregational Church in the center with its exceptionally masterful steeple, and Trinity Episcopal Church, one of the first 3 or 4 Gothic revival churches in America. Representing the commercial ambitions of the Canal era is a program of 3 commercial buildings built in 1832 along Chapel Street. This is the Street Building, an early shopping mall. It's Greek revival in that it uses monolithic granite piers to make a colonnade with wide open storefronts like a Greek stoa. This is the Stoa of Adler in Athens. The piers of the street building are original with their Doric capitals. The other 2 buildings in this group are the Exchange on the green, whose columns have been restored, and the Townsend Block. We see Egyptian revival as well in the 1845 monumental entrance to the Grove Street Cemetery. Here's a contemporary residence, the 1849 James Dwight Dana House on Hill House Avenue. Yale College has quasi-Masonic senior secret societies housed in forbidding, secretive buildings. The oldest is Skull and Bones. The building is 1856, doubled in 1903. In the election of 2004, both U.S. presidential candidates, George Bush and John Kerry, were bonesmen who had been initiated in this building. New Haven City Hall is on the green, begun in 1861 in Victorian Gothic. After the Civil War, New Haven prospered as a manufacturing city. The Winchester Repeating Arms Company that manufactured the Winchester rifle, so-called the gun that won the West, built its factory in New Haven beginning in 1870, not on our tour. Irish Catholic immigrants were coming into their own. Catholics didn't quite manage to build a church on the New Haven Green, but built St. Mary's Church on the elegant residential Hill House Avenue, and it does manage to line up with the three churches on the Green, even so. The front page of the New York Times in July 1879 called St. Mary's a blemish on an aristocratic street. Father Michael J. McGivney was a parish priest there, 1877 to 1884, founded the Knights of Columbus there. He is buried there, and St. Mary's is his shrine. He was beatified by the Catholic Church in 2020. The headquarters of the Knights of Columbus remains in New Haven, in a building known as the Four Cigars, which we will see from a few blocks away. Chapel Street preserves some of the feeling of a commercial street of the 1870s to 1890s. Monson's 1891 was a fancy luxury department store. Wooster Square, where our walk will begin, is an elegant residential square with houses from the 1830s to 1880s and beyond. This is St. Paul's Episcopal Church, Gothic Revival, 1829, on Wooster Square. Here is a row of 1871 brownstones in Worcester Square. This is the 1879 Worcester Square house of Max Adler, a Jewish immigrant to New Haven in the 1840s who ended up owning the Strauss-Adler Company, largest producer of women's foundational garments, that is, corsets, in the United States. The Strauss-Adler factory is right around the corner. Interesting to see the proximity of factory and residences in the 19th century city. Italian immigrants came to New Haven in large numbers, 1890 to 1920, and the area around Wooster Square then became New Haven's Little Italy. A Congregational, then Baptist church from the mid-1850s was remodeled into Italian Renaissance in 1904 by the Scalabrini Fathers to serve Catholic Italian immigrants. In 1892, for the 400th anniversary of 1492, the Italian community put up a statue of Christopher Columbus in Wooster Square. It was removed June 24, 2020, as part of the Black Lives Matter protests. Leaving Wooster Square on Church Street is a Greek Ionic temple to money, the Connecticut Savings Bank, 1906. Another Greek monument is on the Green, the Bennett Drinking Fountain, 1907, a copy of the Lysikrates monument in Athens. In 334 BCE, Lysikrates, as producer, won the dithyramb contest at the city Dionysia and memorialized his achievement. The New Haven County Courthouse, 1909, is a more grandiose neoclassical monument. Skyscrapers start to go up. The Union and New Haven Trust Building on the Green, 1927, has a touch of colonial revival, its tower echoing the 1815 spire of the United Congregational Church. We see Art Deco in the 1937 Southern New England Telephone Company building. After the Second World War, Yale University commissioned a number of modernist buildings from important 20th century architects. Eero Saarinen designed the 1957 Ingalls Hockey Rink at Yale, a building known as the Yale Whale. Saarinen would also do 1962 Dulles Airport in suburban Washington, D.C., and the 1967 St. Louis Gateway Arch. This is the 1963 Beinecke Rare Book and Manuscript Library at Yale. The buildings on Chapel Street of the Yale University Art Gallery tell their own story, renovated and unified in 2012. Altogether from 1832, the oldest university art gallery in the Western Hemisphere. The 1866 Neo-Gothic Street Hall, the 1928 Tuscan Romanesque Old Yale Art Gallery, and the 1953 Yale University Art Gallery of Louis Kahn. In 1974, Louis Kahn also did the Yale Center for British Art. The 1963 Yale Art and Architecture building by Paul Rudolph is an early and outstanding example of so-called brutalist architecture. Its towers on one end of downtown Chapel Street seem to echo the two towers of the 1829 St. Paul's Episcopal on the other end of Chapel Street, and attest a long tradition of interesting architecture in New Haven. Thanks for watching.